Back when I was 6 or 7, I was at a friend's house just hanging out in the middle of the day. At some point, we headed downstairs to get some juice, and outside through the sliding glass door, we saw a girl playing on the swing. The yard was fenced in, so we had no clue how she had gotten in. We decided we should go talk to her. She looked to be about 3, with pink overalls with a sunflower in them. She had blonde hair and light green, almost blue eyes. She said her grandma calls her Peaches, and she would be worried about her. So we decided we would walk her home, which was just around the corner. What happened next, I will never forget. We arrived at the house, Peaches holding onto my friend's hand, and I knocked on the door. An old lady answered, asking us, "What do you want?" To which I replied that we had brought Peaches home. There was a moment of silence, followed by being slapped and yelled at by her grandmother. It turned out that Peaches was in fact her granddaughter, but she had died in a car crash years earlier, caused by her alcoholic mother. The lady then hugged me and went back inside crying. My friend was stunned, and Peaches vanished without her grandmother ever seeing her, even though she was there when I knocked on the door. So this is not an experience of mine, but rather one of my late great-grandfather's. I just remembered this after my mother brought it up. So a little backstory, he and my great-grandmother lived in a nice 2-story house in Florida. They had lived in it since their marriage and had always had the lingering thought that the house may have been haunted. Their experiences were never severe, just little things like light footsteps in the hallways and faint voices. Well, one day their daughter, my grandmother, has to go on a trip over the weekend and leaves her 3 kids, my 2 uncles and mother, with my great-grandparents. The day they're dropped off, Saturday, nothing abnormal happens, and 5 of them all enjoy the day together. Later on in the evening, as my great-grandmother is preparing dinner, my great-grandfather is coerced into playing hide-and-seek with my mother and uncles. He's the seeker. The game's almost over within 5 minutes, as my oldest uncle and mother were not the best of hiders, or so they say. However, my uncle, who we'll all call C, is still missing. As my great-grandfather roamed the bottom floor of the house, he heard a floorboard squeak upstairs, in the toy room. The toy room was a room that, as the name implies, kept toys for the grandchildren to play with. Well, my great-grandfather goes to the room, and the first thing he sees is the large pink chest they store some of the toys in. So he crept over to the chest and threw open the top, yelling, "Gotcha!" However, as he told me a few years before he passed, he was quickly silenced when he realized that while there was a boy in the chest, it wasn't C. The boy, as he described, had a slightly gray skin tone, with an emotionless face, and wore clothing reminiscent of the 50s, and this was in the late 70s. They both stared at each other for a second, before my great-grandfather felt a hand touch his back. It was C. Apparently he was hiding in a hallway closet near the room. C asked him what he was doing. My great-grandfather turned back to the chest, and there was no boy inside. While this wasn't a particularly scary encounter, my great-grandfather would go on to mention the boy's eyes were somewhat unnerving, as his irises were a dark gray, almost black. The story has been told for laughs over the years over how strange it was, and is one of the many paranormal events experienced by my family. I'm 21 years old, and I've lived in the same house for the past 12 years. I've been hearing voices coming from my bathroom ever since we moved here. Sounds like little kids laughing and running around. I've never felt uncomfortable with them since I thought they were coming from the house next to mine, or from my little sister, who was 3 when I first heard them, playing around the house. A couple years later, my sister's around 10 years old, and I keep hearing the voices. I thought the neighbors' kids were just annoying, and then I realized they should sound older. Weird, but oh well, just let them be. My sister started complaining about the noises because her bedroom is next to the bathroom, and she could hear them at random times of the day. Soon after, we discovered that the only people living next door were an older couple that were 60 to 70ish years old. We told our parents, who just said it could be their grandchildren playing, and we let them be again. We're sometimes noisy too. Fast forward to the beginning of 2018, and we still heard the little kid voices, but we can also hear a very loud banging and slamming of a door. It sounded like someone was slamming a door really hard 10 to 15 times in a row at random times. We decided it was enough, and my sister and I went to our neighbor's house, and this was the conversation. "Hello, lady next door. Can we talk to you for a second?" "Yeah, sure, come in. I'd like some company. Is everything okay, girls?" "Yes, we really don't know how to put it nicely, but could you maybe tell the kids to be just a little quieter while playing upstairs?" "Oh, you hear them?" "Yes." "I don't have any grandchildren, but I hear little kids too from my bedroom. Don't worry, I think they are harmless. Just tell them to be quiet. Treat them like you would treat a kid. They usually listen." "Oh, okay, thanks." And then we chatted a bit normally. She was very calm while saying that, which was nice. We went home and told them to keep it down, and it is true. They do listen. The only problem is the banging. Whoever or whatever is causing it doesn't like to listen. Also, since we acknowledge their presence, it has gotten worse. Things fall or disappear and stuff like that. This is my longest experience. I've always been a sensitive, but I'm tired of it. The more I read about it and the more I think of it, the more I experience weird stuff. So apart from telling you all about it, I also want to know if there's anyone who knows how to help me deal with all of this without having to completely ignore it. Something strange has been happening to me lately, and I'm looking to see if anyone has any insight into what it might mean. It actually started a while ago, but the frequency of it has been increasing and made me turn to this community. Birds are frequently being killed in my presence, and 9 times out of 10 it's self-inflicted. The first and maybe most notable of these happened a year or so ago when I was driving home from work. I was talking to my husband on Bluetooth in my car, and I noted that there was a giant turkey roosting in a tree right near the road. No sooner did these words come out of my mouth did the turkey dive bomb out of the tree and into the side of my car, and this caused my side view mirror to be totally obliterated, and the turkey decapitated itself. I have photos of this if anyone is interested. I can post them in the comments. Several times over the last year, random birds would fly into windows when I was near it, and another time I was driving, a flock that was in the road that would typically fly out of the way didn't, and I inadvertently took out like 6 of them while I was stopping. It kind of died down in the winter, just my cardinal yard buddies visiting at the feeder in the snow, but in February I got the flu really bad. When I was sick, my husband kept saying that our cat was leaving me get well presents on the deck. When I was well enough to finally move around, I looked and there were 2 massive blue jays on the deck that he had killed. I know that's not super out of the ordinary, but them being around in February, in the winter where I live, let alone my cat catching and killing 2 of them, is odd. The other day I was mowing the lawn and a mourning dove flew down and sat directly in front of the lawnmower as I was pushing it. I had to walk up to it and shoo it away, but it took way more work than it should have. Today though, on my way to work, is what prompted me to look into what all of this means. I commute about 25 minutes to work, mostly rural roads. Not exactly country, but not highway either. Before I got out of my neighborhood, a robin flew from the bushes and smacked into the driver's side window. 5 minutes later, another small bird flew right in front of the car and died on the front. Halfway to work, a hawk was just sitting in the middle of my lane. No roadkill in sight, and just stared at me for about 4 seconds before it flew away. Then about a mile away from work, a blue jay flew in front of my car, and my coworker had to pull its body out of the grill when I got there. So what gives? Does birds offing themselves in my presence have any sort of meaning attached to it? Or is it one of those things that I'm noticing more because I noticed it in the first place? Any insight or recommendations on how to maybe get it to stop is greatly appreciated. It's really troubling to me. I like to minimize the amount of death I'm responsible for in this world. I don't eat animal products, I don't wear them. Yet I seem to attract their deaths anyway. Hey scaredy cats, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll never miss out on any of the stories. If you have any stories that you'd like for me to read, you can find the links for submissions in the description below.